all the fans loved the soundtrack of Life is Strange, so a lot of them were wondering how did you pick the music and the songs for specific scenes? Are there specific artists that you always had in mind, or is it sort of something you thought of later on down the line?
No, so it was a really long process. Actually, we knew from the beginning that we wanted to have an original score for the game, of course, but to have also licensed tracks. So those musics that are existing songs that we use on some of the key scenes of the game. And so we knew what were the scenes where we wanted to have those music. So for each of the scenes, we thought about the mood, about what we wanted the scene to evoke, about the characters, and then we started to make a short list of songs that we thought would work for this scene, where the lyrics would also be working, but also the rhythm, the pacing of the song, because if it was for a cliffhanger of the end of an episode, we needed sometimes to have a peak in the song to work with that. And then for each of those scenes, we had like 10 to 20 songs in our mind that could work, so it was more than almost 200 songs for the whole game. And then we try to reduce it to see what works best, and also to contact, with the help of Square Enix, to contact the artists and their agents to see what would be the pricing for the song, what would be the rights to get them. So for some of the artists, we also had even to try to write them, to convince them, because sometimes artists doesn't want to work with video games. They just have in mind that decided that it could be used in a bad way. So we had to explain more in details where the song would be used. And then in the end, we managed to get all those songs we have in the game, and we are extremely happy with the soundtrack and all the artists we have. It was really awesome.
Oh, yeah, awesome. Is there one artist or song that you didn't get to choose that you would have really liked to have included in the final game?
There was a lot of artists on our list that we would have loved to also have in the game, but at a point we had to make a list of within our budget. So there were some that, for example, like Bon Iver or Explosion in the Sky, or those were some I would have loved to get, but Raoul also had a lot of songs he would have loved to have. I don't remember all of them, but in the end we are extremely happy with the one we have, and I think they are, in our minds, best for the scene. So it's okay to not have everything.
And we were really happy to be able to include the original score and the license tracks in the box versions. A lot of fans wanted that, and to have created this limited edition with the soundtrack on it is really a great achievement for us.
If you had to recommend like one artist or song that that for fans of the soundtrack, if they wanted to sort of find out more music similar to Life is Strange, do you have an artist or a song or anything like that you could recommend?
That's a hard question, because there is
just so many
different artists on the soundtrack. Some of them are with this indie folk vibe, but there is also modern some post rock with Mogwai, or so it's not everything in the same genre of music. It's a hard question. I would say each of those artists are great, and if the players just go to listen more to those artists, they will really find great music. And
I think Raoul and Michel and Sébastien Gaillard, our audio lead, made a really great work to choose the perfect song for the games, and hopefully they didn't ask me. My musical tastes are very different. I don't think it will have fit with Life is Strange really well. But
it depends. Maybe we might have had to make some new scenes to work with your
rock concert scenes.
Yeah.
A lot of fans picked up on extra references to, like, say, Catcher in the Rye, for example, that they guess you took inspiration from. But other people also sort of found a lot of parallels between, say, something like Steins Gate or Muramaki's Two Moons, I believe. So I was wondering if those are sort of familiar to you, if that's something new that you've just heard now.
Actually, not at all to me. I've heard the name a lot of time on the forums, and I never watched it, or I don't even know what is Steins Gate or the other one. I have no idea what it is.
Time to check it out.
Do you know what
No.
it is? Oh.
Neither.
I know that I've picked some people saying that they find some references to a Japanese anime which was The Girls Who Live Through Time, I think.
Yep.
And actually, I did watch this one, and it was really cool. But we didn't know it before starting to work on the game.
Okay, all right. In the limited edition art book, a lot of people picked up on the artwork of Max in a hospital gown, throwing a bust away almost. So were there any bits like what were there any bits of the story that you cut out, and you would have liked to have kept in, or were they didn't cut them out because they didn't make sense, or?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Actually, this concept art. The exact scene of this concept art is still in the game, but in a different way. It's the scene where Max drives through the storm and tries to go to the diner, and she has to save people from the storm. In our really first idea for this scene, maybe in our mind the storm would have been a bit more powerful, and that's why you had the bus flying and Max trying to rewind it to save herself from a bus crashing on herself. But when we were making the game, we saw that it was a bit too much, because at this moment the storm is not completely on Arcadia Bay, so it was a bit stupid to make
That powerful
flying
already.
buses or flying cars, because it's still a few hours later that it really destroys the town. And for the hospital gown, it's just that there is one scene that we had in mind that we eventually did cut because it didn't make a lot of sense. It didn't advance the story. It was after Max had been saved by David in Jefferson's bunker in the dark room. We had in mind the idea that David might bring her to an hospital to be just checked and see if everything is all right. And then she was going outside of the hospital when she realized that the storm was coming. But it was adding a bit of too long and unnecessary scenes, and we saw that it was better to go directly from the dark room to Max driving Jefferson's car and going to the street.
All right, cool. Do you think if there was any other one scene that you could name that maybe no one's heard of, or rumored at, or something like that?
I think that there might be, because when we were working on the story before even starting episode 1, of course the story still evolves a bit. We already had in mind the beginning and the endings, but all the scenes there was some scenes at the first version that might have been different, and then when we refined the story, we tried to adjust, work out, and find what's the best rhythm and what are the best scenes to really make the final game. So I'm not sure.
Maybe some nightmare propositions for nightmare sequences.
Yeah, maybe for the nightmare, when we started to draft the nightmare scene, of course there was a lot of ideas. You can do so many things in a nightmare. So at the point you can go wild and think about tons of things, and then we have also to restrain and reduce to try to make something that works and that tells the narrative aspects and that give a good feeling of good interesting gameplay to the player. But I don't even remember which kind of specifics we could tell about.
In fact, it's almost the opposite. It's the opposite, because the nightmare sequence has a lot of different scenes, and we were not sure at some point that we would be able to do all of these.
Yeah.
So so the designers put a lot of effort. I remember Simon saying he stayed overnight so many days just because he wanted to make sure that all the scenes were there. So the team did a great job to avoid other scenes.
When you were casting for characters and character voices, what were the main things you looked for? For example, one of the questions was particularly about Kate and how Kate's voice actors really nailed, really landed the role. So what were you guys looking for in particular when choosing individual characters?
It's a hard job. It's not easy because we're French, so we are. Of course, we were working Christian and some people at Square Enix were also helping us and giving us their opinion on the casting. But on our side, it's some of the subtlety. I guess we don't get it. We don't always get it since we're French and we don't maybe get everything. So the things we were looking for example, for Kate, was to have this very soft and quiet and nice voice. That Kate is really really a good person. So her voice acting and her way of speaking, the rhythm, and her acting, it was really needed that she gave this feeling of this really positive feeling, this really soft and nice feeling. But at the same time, we wanted her voice to be still slightly different from Max, because Max also has this kind of qualities. So we were working on the casting at the same time, trying to find two voices that were not also too close or too similar for Max and Kate, for example.
Totally. And what's interesting during the casting process, when you listen to all the different actors, most of them are really, really good. And sometimes you have just something in your head, you visualize a scene with Kate or Chloe and Max, and the voice works perfectly with it. You don't imagine an actor speaking. You visualize the actor in your head, the character in your head speaking, and it worked with Kate this way as well.
And I think that something that was really important for us was more, sometimes even more than the pitch or the sound of the voice, was really the acting. Because I think it's a mistake we can make sometimes, just to think too much about what kind of sound or pitch or tone of voice, and sometimes lose the focus on the acting, where the acting is clearly the most important part. A great actor, which always produce a better voice acting than a lesser good actor, but we might have a better sounding voice. So it's really important to focus on the acting of those characters.
The most interesting casting part, besides the main characters, was I think Jefferson, because when we recorded when we created the lines that would be used for the casting part, we had to choose the calm teacher Jefferson, but also how he would be scarier, in the dark room, and the work he did was amazing.
It's interesting because at the moment we didn't have any lines for the darkroom part. Mm-hmm. So on the casting document for Jefferson, we used some lines from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, with what the killer is. Some lines from the killer in the movie. So it was interesting. It was a way to still get those two different sort of casting lines for the actor.
I mean, just on top of that, I think what a lot of people so often don't realize is that some of the actors, like Hannah Tell, for example, they've got two characters that they actually voice in the game. So like Kate's actor is voiced is Alyssa as well. So I guess that ties into like picking an actor rather than just the pitch of a voice, doesn't it?
Yeah, during the casting, we really did cast those actors for their main part, mm-hmm. But we still also tried to be sure that they could manage to change their voice to make other of the secondary characters, and it was fun. And it was really interesting. For example, Samuel is voiced by the same actor as Jefferson, and the way when the first time he was trying to speak for Samuel, we were like amazed, but how is he the same guy? So it was really cool.
He really did an amazing job, when in the scene where he's humming a song and like this. Yeah, it was really fun. He's a really amazing actor.
With Chloe's character, everyone fell in love with Chloe. Did you envision her as she sort of turned out to be from the beginning, or did a lot of her character change and sort of grow throughout the story? And I guess Ashley Birch has a lot to do with that, but I wonder how much input you guys had as well.
That's a really good question. Of course, characters tend to evolve during the writing process, but quite from the beginning, when we decided to create Chloe, that we wanted to have this best friend for Max, which would be the main ally, but also the main opponent to Max in a narrative structure. I mean, because Chloe is basically pushing Max always to. Chloe is challenging Max, so she's really a drive for the player to advance on the story and to also get into bad situations or good situations. So this is this blend of best friend, but also a character that put Max sometimes in bad situations. So right from the beginning, we had this idea of creating this really cool punk rock teenager with a lot of angst and a lot of personal issues. So she was quite quite from the beginning, she was still fleshed out a bit like this. But of course, during the writing process, with Christian writing the dialogues, and of course Ashley giving the awesome performance for the voice acting, she was still even more shaped, and definitely Ashley brings some.
Yeah, the casting part was really nice because we received, you know, a lot of proposition for the actor, and it worked so well. Ashley has this kind of fast pacing, fast way to talk, and it works so nice with the first scene we had in Chloe's room with David, the scene. It worked really, really nice, and what's interesting with episodic games is that Ashley was able to see her work in the first episode, while she hadn't recorded yet some of the latest ones. So I think even the writing of Christian was adapted to these characters that was turning into shape.
So you've had Max and Chloe as the protagonists, but were they ever? So was there ever another character, either a third character or a character that was sort of swapped out in favor of Max and Chloe, or did you always think you wanted Max? You always had the character of Max, and you always had the character of Chloe, or was one of them different, like vastly different, at one point or another?
In the beginning, we didn't have anyone. Then we start to work on the story and the characters, and so Max appeared first. We still brainstorm in the beginning. We just had this idea of using the rewind power and making a game about choice and consequences. So when the brainstorming process, you start to work on what kind of setting, what kind of characters, and give some really quick ideas. So there were some quick ideas about other characters, like maybe a male character or some different, just some quick rough ideas. But really early in the beginning, we did create Max, and we really loved her, and we thought that okay, this character will be the best for this story. And it's just a bit later than appeared the idea of having Chloe and having this really strong friendship. Because in the beginning we thought maybe, okay, what kind of story can we say with Max giving her the rewind power in a high school setting? And then when you start to think about your main storyline, your main narrative beats, you start to see what's missing or what's work or what doesn't work. And so quickly at a point we said that okay, we need to have a sidekick, we need to have this really strong friendship that can evolve into maybe something more, and really focus the game with that, and be this relationship the drive of the story.
Given infinite time and infinite resources,
Thank you.
so if Square Enix were to give you full, everything you ever wanted to develop the game, is there one particular character that you would have liked to have sort of given them more background story, or more scenes or more development?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I guess with more resources, more money, we can always improve the game. Some bit like using more of this resource for motion capture, for facial animations, for graphic quality, but I don't think that. I think that what we really wanted to make with this game is to use the budget we have and make the best experience possible within the budget, thinking about our limitations, but still making the story we wanted to tell.
Because I think Kojima said that the fact that sometimes it's best to have constraints, and make the best of it, because if you have more time, more budget, you tend to
just keep adding things.
The goals are.
And I think that you need to be efficient in storytelling. I think the length of the episodes is already sometimes it's good, but it's still quite long. It's between 2 hours and a half and 3, or even 3 hours and a half. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't, if you just play the main part of the episode, and for players who really try to explore this, they can spend up to 5 or even 6 hours on some episodes, which is already long. And if we did more and added more, we could end up dilute the core of the story, and stop focusing on what's important. So I don't think that it would be a great idea to try to expand everything. Yeah. So
the game naturally expanded itself a little bit, because at first the game was supposed to have like 1 hour and 1 hour and a half long episodes. So in the end,
Way back in time.
we realized it needed a little bit more, and episode 3 was a little bit bigger than the first 2, and 4
and 4 was
even
even
more.
bigger.
So the game itself wanted more, and we had to apply constraints.
I
we're
think
really proud of the result.
we eventually, I think we already did expand some of the characters, like adding the scene with Kate in the hospital in episode 4, if she's alive. Even expanding some dialogues that more than what we originally planned with Jefferson or with Nathan in the later episodes, to be sure that we gave enough information about them to the player. So maybe we could have expanded Nathan a bit more, but I still really like the way we did treat his death in episode 5, which I know is quite terrible because it is not shown, and basically he dies out of camera, and the player doesn't get to see it. But that's what we wanted to do with him, because he's a tragic character, and this was quite a tragic death where he tried to help Max, but it was too late. And so basically, he tried to redeem himself, but it was useless. It didn't work out. Poor Nathan.
Given that Life Strange focuses on a lot of particularly psychological issues like depression and stuff like that, how did you pick like what issues to focus on? Like, did you sort of have in mind when you created the game and sort of thought of the story, we want to sort of tackle depression, we want to talk about bullying and stuff like that?
It definitely didn't work out this way. We think that it would be maybe a mistake to just start with like a checklist of, okay, let's go and let's make this game, and let's decide to talk about depression, euthanasia, suicide, domestic violence, and doing a list like that before you know what your game is. I think it would be the bad way to do it, because it would just try to force those subjects into the game, and it wouldn't be easy to make them feel logical or natural within the story. So in the opposite, our way of working was really to start with the main story. We had one main theme, this coming of age story of Max, and this big theme of telling the player that sometimes you need to accept life how it is, to accept that everything won't be perfect, and just try to move on, and to accept some sacrifices to become an adult. And when we had this big theme, this main story arc with Max and Chloe, and the final choice at the end, we had the setting, we had the Blackwell Academy, the high school setting, we had the character. Then we could start to think what made sense within this story as secondary themes, and what could also push the main story. For example, the scene of the euthanasia with Chloe in episode 4 is here because at a point we knew that we needed to have terrible consequences for Max's action. So that was the idea of getting Chloe handicapped, and then we wanted the player to experience a really difficult choice where he had to to take responsibility for this action. So giving the player this choice of accepting or refusing Chloe's request, it was something that we really wanted to say at a point there is no cop-out. You have to take this responsibility. And so that's where we thought that euthanasia could work really well for this scene, to expand on our main themes, but also to talk about this subject of assisted suicide, which thought that was the right moment in the game to do it, and that was interesting to bring this subject to the awareness of the players, and to talk about it in the game. So that's basically how we tried to use all the themes, all the difficult social and psychological themes we have in the game. That's how we tried to decide to put them in the story. Yeah. That's a long answer.
Yeah. About this topic, you had a talk at GDC, a very interesting one. So I think it might be interesting to give this to Square Enix, through Square Enix to the audience.
You're right.
It's a very interesting talk.
And the video is free to watch, so we can give the link.
Yes, we'll include the link in the video. So click here.